And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, "Ooh, woo, $300,000, big deal." That's actually quite a big deal.
That's half a contract, half a vet minimum deal.
It is. But you also have to look at the number of teams that are swimming, absolutely like Scrooge McDuck swimming in cap space. There are 4 teams that are $10 million below the floor. There's still a few more teams that are below the floor, just not 10 million below. And then there's Utah that's like $20 million short. And there are 8 teams with at least $20 million worth of cap space. 20 million in space. 8.
Yeah.
8 teams, man. That's a quarter of the league.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh my God.
That's so many teams that have an insane amount of cap space. And what that means is not only do they have the space, but because the ceiling went up, the floor went up too. So specifically for those teams that were already like $10+ million below the floor, they got to come up with another $300,000.
Good luck.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a win, not only because we get an extra $300,000 on the cap, but we're looking to shed money, right? And there are already a number of destinations. We probably weren't going to be the only team looking to shed money. I don't think that's any secret here. But because there's that extra space now, some other teams are probably like, well, maybe we're a little bit more comfortable doing this instead of that, right? They don't need to go and shed so much money. And then what those other teams looking to bring in that cap space can't charge as much now because it's not, well, we got that extra 300,000. We might not need to send this money over. So like it really kind of affects the market, I would say.
I think so. I definitely think so. And like you look at a team, I feel like Utah is the perfect example, formerly Arizona, because they were just, I don't know, felt like the NHL's money laundering scheme, just sending all these contracts that nobody wants over there. But they are, Mitch, almost $21 million away from the floor, not in cap space. They have $44.4 million in projected cap space. Oh no, I'm sorry, $43.6 million in cap space. But to get to the floor, you're still $21 million away. That's a big difference.
Yeah. And of that 43.6, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of that, 7.875 is Shea Weber's LTIR money. That's nearly 20% of the cap of their entire cap hit is LTIR money. This is dead contract.
Yeah.
They have 11 of 23 players signed. They're still missing 52% of their team.
So that's gonna change as they sign people. But they need bodies, they need contracts. They scream like the team to dump someone to. So does, in a way, San Jose too.
Yeah, so San Jose is kind of the same situation. They're super like what? I don't think it's quite $20 million, but it's pretty goddamn close. It's not like below the floor, right?
They are 15 million away from the floor. They have 13 of 23 right now.
And I think they've got 3 retained contracts, which is the most. You can't have more than 3. So a lot of retained money is still part of that cap hit. Like Carlson is part of that.
Carlson, Thomas Hertl, Brent Burns.
My gosh. Right. So like, and that's their cap hit. And they have 13 of 23 players signed. They still need to make up 44% of their roster in terms of contracts. And they have a bajillion amount of dollars to do so.
Yep.
But they might need a guy like Andersley
to
fill in that spot
with their number 1 pick on the top line.
Right. And we have to remember when it comes to Andersley, yes, he's got that $7 million contract for a couple more years, but his underlying numbers are really, really good. His individual expected goals at 5-on-5 were some of the best in the league. He's not popping them in as much as he used to, but the ice time has gone down as well. But you put him out there with 18-year-olds, for Christ's sake, and he doesn't have to do any of the skating. Just go park in front of the net, bud, and work your magic. Man, I think he could be a 30-goal scorer for a Utah or a San Jose.
Why can't he be? Doug Weight and John Tavares crossed over, right, Doug Weight was like, why can't he be the vet for this young group? Like, he's not a $7 million player anymore, as we know. Can he give you 25 goals again? I think he can. I still think he can.
Think so. Maybe not for us, right? Because then a lot of people say, well, if he's a 30 goal scorer, why don't we keep him? Because we could probably use 30 goals.
I don't know. I don't know if it works.
You could probably get 30 goals and another maybe 50 to 60 points, maybe even more than that, by allocating that money you would free up from Anders Lee. Because Anders Lee's going to maybe get you 25 to 30 goals, but it's going to be like 40 points at most in a good year.
Yeah, it was 20 goals and 37 points this past year, which obviously really big drop off. This is someone you want 25 to 30 goals and over 50 points, and unfortunately that's not the case, and I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. But as mentioned, like a team that's in transition that has, you know, young player, Chicago maybe even.
Yeah, because they're up there too, right? 14 of 23 contracts signed, so they don't have a ton of space in terms of the number of players they can bring in. But you add him to the mix of, let's say, Connor Bedard and Taylor Hall, right? You put a top line of Anders Lee, Connor Bedard, Taylor Hall, that's going to be a good top line.
It's serviceable, right? Like, they're not ready to compete yet, but that's a serviceable, like, you could know what you have in Connor Bedard for the next year or so as you get assets and continue to build it up.
Exactly. Or just power play, right? You got a net front presence now in Anders Lee on the power play, and you let your younger, more talented guys like Frank Nazar, like Connor Bedard, whoever they're going to draft this year. Lev Shunov, I think, is the guy who said that Chicago's the only one who took them out to dinner. So kind of seems like that's who they're drafting.
Yeah.
But you add all that together, and you're like, well, they could use a guy like that. Plus, they can hit the friggin' floor. $7 million worth of cap space is a lot of money, even though Chicago is what I think you have it up there still, like $12-13 million from the floor.
Yeah, give me 1 second on Chicago. They are at 53, so they're 12 million, roughly 12 million away from the floor.
Right, so you add Anders Lee to that takes up a lot of space. It doesn't get them to the floor yet, but they're only 14 of 23 contracts. They still have to get another 9 guys signed. And I'm sure they've got guys that they can throw in there. I haven't looked at their cap friendly RIP, but I'm sure you can make up a good like $15 million worth of signings, but you're still not really that competitive with those $15 million. You've hit the floor, but that's not really going to be enough.
No. God, no. The teams that jump out, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose, Utah, the bottom 4 right there are teams to watch in the Anders Lee, JG Pageau dump-off scenarios.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.